Christian Parenting.
Hey parents, are you looking for simple, meaningful ways to help your kids know, love, and follow Jesus? Well, the Christian Parenting Store has exactly what you need, from scripture affirmation cards and devotionals for kids to prayer journals and customizable prayer cards. Every resource is designed with your family in mind. These tools really do make it easier to weave faith into your everyday life and give your kids a strong foundation in Christ. One of the things I don't want you to miss are simplified guides. And what these are digital guides that have all the resources you need to learn about some tricky topics. So let's say discipleship, identity, technology, politics. We pull all together the best voices in the Christian Parenting Network, and we put everything by topic into one guide. And here's why I love this. When I was a young parent, I kind of wanted a script. I'm like, I feel just nervous. I'm going to say the wrong thing, or I don't even know what I'm talking about. And I think these guides can help you just with the starting point to say, what does the Bible say about this? What are other parenting people saying about this, and then go from there in much prayer with how you need to proceed with your own kids. But if you're looking to help your kids strengthen their own relationship with the Lord and start building good faith habits, check out some of those devotionals. There are so many different options in there that your kids will love. And here's the best part. Every time you make a purchase within Christian Parenting, it helps us continue to create incredible resources for families like yours. So make sure you head on over to cpgive.org to check out all the wonderful resources available. And again, get your family faith resources at cpgive.org. Hey friends, welcome back to Pardon the Mess podcast. I'm your host, Courtney DeFeo. Did you guys know? I don't even know if I've told you this yet, but we are on YouTube now. So if you go on over to YouTube and search Pardon the Mess, you will find some of the video there. It's not too exciting, but hey, at least if you like to see faces interacting versus just voices, you can go over and put that on. And today's guest is named Jessica, and she and her husband are the hosts of Full Spectrum Parent, which is a part of the Christian Parenting Podcast Network. We have 29 podcasts at this time. They're a part of Christian Parenting. Pardon the Mess is one of those. And this podcast that she and her husband host is the only faith-based autism podcast for parents. And as you'll hear, even if you don't have a child with special needs, I want you to listen to this one because you're just going to get a glimpse of a mom whose plate is full and overflowing, and you don't know how she's alive, but her voice is so happy. Her face is so happy. And she's been in it probably, I think, 17 years. And so if you're newer into a diagnosis for your child, I think you'll be so encouraged to see what God has done over her 17 years of parenting and all the things that he's taught her. We get real about, was she angry at God? Was she frustrated? Do other parents complaining about their kids? Did they lose a game or did they fail a math test? Is she angry? She's like, yeah. So she's super honest. She's funny. And I think you'll just be delighted to learn from a mom who's gone through so much. We talk about the new movie, Unbreakable Boy, which you've heard advertised today. We talk about her book that came out last year called Unlimited Motherhood. But mostly it's just one mom to another, listening to her story, gleaning what we can about what God's done in her life and her family's life. And so I think you'll walk away just heartful. You may walk away with a little bit of tears in your eyes, depending on where you are with your child's special needs. But we hope you feel so encouraged and so seen. And we Maisie, we at Part of the Mess, think that you are heroes. You are doing a great job. I have several friends and even my sister walking through a motherhood journey that was different than they thought. And I'm just so proud of you guys and so honored to call you friends and watch you show up for your kids. All right, enjoy Jessica. Jessica, how are you? Welcome to Pardon the Mess.
Thanks for having me, Courtney. I'm excited to be here.
We just bonded over our last names. Neither of our husbands warned us. So tell them your last name.
My last name is Hurlbut, which I knew ahead of time what I was getting into. And I always tell my husband, I really loved you to make this choice.
And mine is DeFeo, and it means of ugly in Spanish. And I didn't realize that till months.
Of course, he's not going to tell you that.
And I'm looking at my hair. So my daughter's got the Dyson hair wrap, which is like this bazillion-dollar. Yeah. We have tons of hair in our family, but their grandparents said, we don't want to give you a bunch of gifts as teenage girls. We'll give you one thing. So they got that to share. And I'm looking, they've passed down their like Revlon CVS version of a hairdryer to me. And I'm like, this is what I'm dealing with over here. Meanwhile, y'all are looking like a Pantene commercial. It's absurd. So ridiculous.
That's why I cut mine off.
That's right. Oh, it's cute.
It's too
cute.
easy. It's too hard to deal with. Too many things to do.
I love it. Well, tell everybody about the snow you're sitting in this morning.
Yeah. So I was just telling Courtney, we had yesterday, well, between yesterday and the day before, we've gotten over 20, I think it's 24 inches. So
snow.
It's insane. This is not typical. We live in upstate New York, so we do get snow. And it also tends to be really cold during the month of February. And right now it's negative 20 out. So I was coming in, I'm at my church right now doing the interview, and I was coming in and my fingers were freezing to the key. And I was only outside for like a few seconds. I'm like, this is dangerous.
I don't even know what we would do with that. So this is February 18th. This is going to come out in March. But just so y'all have an indication of when we're recording this, Texans would die. The state would be gone. Everyone would curl up and just die.
It's insane. When your nose hairs freeze, when you go out and your breath is, you can throw one of the things that's pretty common is you can take a pot of boiling water, and if you throw it outside, it will freeze before it hits the ground.
That's incredible.
It's crazy. Yeah, we're always like, why do we live here? But people need Jesus here, so that's why.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. It's a mission field up there. So tell me, are you from there, or how did you get to New York?
Yeah, born and raised, in the same town that me and my husband now pastor. Went away for college to Florida, asked Jesus, please let me stay here forever. I'll do ministry down here in the warm tropical land. And he said, no, you need to go back home.
Thanks a lot.
I know. It's awesome, though. We love it here. It's a town of 10,000 people. It's a very small, still feels like that Norman Rockwell kind of feel downtown. Everybody knows everybody. I can drive down the street and I might not know their name, but I know who they are. So it's a very unique setting, and God's doing a lot here just because of relationships in that small town feel. So it's pretty cool.
What's the name of your church?
That's called New Testament Church.
Okay, and what town are you in?
It's Messina, New York. And we actually just planted another church in Ogdensburg about 45 minutes away. So me and my husband run both of those churches. We have a great team, though. We have a team on our staff. There's about 8 or 9 people. So it sounds like we're doing it all, but they're doing it all, and we're waving.
That's amazing. Well, you have done a lot. I was asking you about, are you working on anything I can help promote? You had a book come out last year called Unlimited Motherhood. You have a podcast called Full Spectrum Parent, which is the only faith-based autism podcast for parents, which I just love. And I'm like, is that it? As if raising your 4 kids and pastoring churches.
Oh, no, 5 kids. 5.
5 kids. My gosh. All right. Well, tell us about your kiddos. I hate to ask you your motherhood story in 5 minutes, but before we get into special needs and autism and all that you encourage parents with, give us the background of how these beautiful 5 kids came into your world.
Yeah, so me and my husband have been married for, it's almost been 21 years. Crazy. But our oldest is 17 and our youngest is 11. We always wanted a big family. I grew up in a big family. I have 5 siblings. Wow. But kind of didn't pan out the way we anticipated it. We had my son a few years after we were married, and he's, bright, obedient, calm, just we thought we were the perfect parents when we had him. We were like, we know what we're doing. And I always God tricked us. He was like, have lots of more babies, and then realize you know nothing.
That's right. That's right.
So, he's typical. Our 17-year-old, his name is Jeremiah. And then, I went to the doctors for a postnatal checkup after I had him. So it'd been a month or so, and just make sure I healed, everything doing okay. And he's like, everything looks good. And by the way, you're pregnant. Oh. And I was like, no. And he was like, I told you, you're not supposed to do that. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I was devastated because, new mom, you're just learning to be a mom, right? So a year later, they had the same due date.
That's unbelievable.
So they weren't born on the same day, but they had the same due date.
Which, by the way, TMI, sorry, folks, but many of us are like, sorry, husband, the doctor actually said it's 14 weeks. I know.
I just blame it on him, right? So I was pretty overwhelmed, but along came my daughter, Mara, and it was probably within a year. So we're raising these 2 babies, right? But within a year with her, she started crying all the time. And I didn't even know what autism was. But by the time she was 3, she was diagnosed with autism, level 3, which is the more severe end. So at that point, we were like, I guess, this is going to be all consuming. We probably can't have any more kids. Really hard season. So we waited 4 years and kind of prayed. And she got to a special school that she's still in today. That's amazing. And around the 4th year after she she was 4 years old. We kind of said, Jesus, we still want to have a bigger family. And we started doing foster care, thinking maybe we'll adopt. Because basically the doctors told us, me and my husband are the genetic perfect storm, that we have a 1 in 4 chance of having a child with autism because of our genetics.
Wow.
So it was a big risk to have another child, but we were like, well, we kind of just got to this place of surrender, really, where we said, if we adopt, awesome, if that's in the cards for us, God. And if we have another biologically, we're just going to trust you either way. So we started fostering, and then we ended up getting placement for a little, oh my gosh, he's just the light of my life, a little African-American boy. His name is Isaac. We got him straight from the hospital as a newborn. So I was ecstatic. And of course, the way our life works, about like a week or 2 later, I found out I was pregnant.
Oh, my word.
But again, 9 months, we had 9 months until I was going to have a baby. And this little guy we were fostering, we were actually told that they were pretty sure the mom was going to, get her rights back. And it would be like a month or 2. So we thought this was a very temporary thing. Long story short, she ended up losing her rights. So I ended up having this foster baby, and then I'm out to here pregnant, and we're still doing visits with the bio mom. And we're at a visit. I'm probably 6 or 7 months, and I'm like complaining. I'm just a bad pregnant person, complaining about swollen ankles and, whatever, heartburn. And the bio mom to our foster son says, I know what you mean. I feel the same way. And I'm like, what do you mean you feel this? Comes to find out she was pregnant. And so along came a little girl. So within a year, it was 13 months, we had his sister. We were fostering his sister. We had 3 babies under 1.
I have like my jaw on the ground.
Plus, remember now, we also have my older son and my daughter with severe autism. So, and my daughter with autism at the time still was in diapers. So she was probably 5 or 6. She was 7 until she got out of diapers because she really struggled with high needs. So we had 4 in diapers. It was insane. So obviously it didn't work. All I did all day was change diapers. But we adopted those 2. So Isaac and Emma are our 2 adopted children. And in between our 2 adopted children, our biological son's name is Jacob. And he's 11 now. But we found out around 3 years old, he's never cried. He's the happiest kid ever. But he lived in his own little world. So at 3, he got diagnosed with severe autism. Also, which is interesting because they're very different. But autism is a social disorder, right? Like he wants to live in his own little world, and so does my daughter. It just presents itself differently, where she has a lot of meltdowns, and she's a lot more verbal. He's very, very quiet, keeps to himself and plays alone, but is happy. So that's our crazy, wild, wonderful family.
And you have the biggest smile on your face.
Well, we have this theory, even in our podcast, we have a dose of humor, because I'm like, if you don't laugh, you're not going to make it. Our marriage wouldn't have made it. We would have been in the grave or something. You got to laugh. What are you going to do?
Well,
this is the life he has for us.
Gosh, that's amazing. What do you know now that you didn't know in the beginning? And I would say beginning, but maybe that spot where you're handling.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I say a lot, and I'm so thankful for this, and I'm not thankful for everything that autism has brought, but it's killed the perfectionist in me. I am such a perfectionist. I still struggle with it personally, but it's not even my concern. I know what would have happened if I didn't have kids with special needs is I would have transferred that to my kids. I would have made them, like my oldest, he's like a genius, I'll take all honors, IB classes, and I would have put undue pressure on him. You got to get all these high grades, you got to get into a good college, and again, I would have meant well, and it's not that we don't want our kids to succeed, but there was something in me that was broken, that really believed a lie that my value is in what I do. And then I'm given, blessed by God with these 2 children. They will never, they're both on the severe end, unless a miracle happens, they will never work a normal job. They will never get married. They will never even work at McDonald's. Like, they will never do anything productive. They will live with us for the rest of our life. And realizing the blessing and the joy that they bring to our life, despite anything that they do, has been one of the most beautiful lessons to learn, because it doesn't just translate to them. I feel like I can now see my typical kids that way, but even see people that way. Like, through a different lens, you just start to value the gift of a person as a human. Like, I don't even know how to explain it. So I can look at someone even in our church who's, maybe retired and, does crossword puzzles and doesn't do much as in the world standard, and see a value and have a love and just an enjoyment even for the relationship I have with them.
Wow.
Because they're a blessing in who they are. To me, that's been just huge. And I'm thankful for it because I feel like I really would have pushed my typical kids in an unhealthy way. And I would have transferred that same ungodly belief that your value is in solely what you do. Because that's what the world around us teaches us, right?
I have so many questions for you, but one of those is, did you ever want to just punch people in the face that are complaining? That are just like, that are like, oh my gosh, my kid.
It still happens. I'm better. God's helped me some. But when my son, so like my daughter was diagnosed at 3, 4 years went by before we had my son. And then it was another 3 years before he was diagnosed. So it was this window of time. But when he was diagnosed with severe autism too, because that was my greatest fear, right? And it was like, God, surely we trust you, Jesus. We trusted you to have another child. You won't let this happen again.
Right. Surely. Yeah.
Whatever kind of theology that is, that's the theology I was playing. I don't know. Like, right. Like, I trusted you. So therefore you must not give me anything hard. Like, that's so stupid. Right. But after that season, after he was diagnosed, I told people I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to see anybody, because it was that. It was all these friendships and people that meant well in my life that would be like, my son's failing math.
And you're like,
I don't know what we're going to do. He might have to repeat 7th grade. And you just have to like try. And you're a pastor. So we get it all the time.
Yeah.
Right? About everything. I mean, sometimes they're really huge issues too, but you're supposed to be a listening ear. You're supposed to be there to pray for people. But there were times where on the inside, I was just like, I remember telling God, like, I can't keep doing ministry.
Yeah.
It's like, not only did I feel like I had nothing to give, but I felt angry at people.
Right. Yeah.
I went through a season where I was angry at God, but that season after my son, it was less anger at God and more angry at other people's petty problems. And I thought, wow, my gosh, like, you need to be compassionate.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
But God brought me through that season. It took a few years, really, but it really had to get something in my heart where I think, God kind of corrected me. He said, Jess, you act like, everybody else has it easy, but you don't know the road they're walking, right? You can't. We always talk about comparison and we're like, don't compare your life to other people, but it's always like the good things. And I realized I was doing the opposite, right? Because we're like, oh, I'm jealous. They get to go to that nice vacation, or they have that nice house, or they achieved this thing. But I was doing the opposite. I was comparing problems.
Yeah.
And that's just as dangerous, or almost maybe worse sometimes, because you elevate yourself as this victim and everybody else, it's like poo-poo. But I'm not walking their shoes. I don't know what it's like to go through a divorce and have my husband cheat on me. Thank God. Like, how dare I think, though, that is less. You know what I mean? Like, who am I?
But it would take every bit of the Holy Spirit for me not to be like, oh, that's cute. Do you want to come over and play and just spend the day? It's like the wife swapper thing. It's like, oh, you think, gosh.
Oh, I mean, I'm not kidding though. I've had situations. There's a couple times. There's one time at my church, another time at my house. This is so bad. Where people were telling me their problems. And my daughter, Mara, with autism, was having a full-fledged meltdown, like screaming on the ground and like throwing herself on the ground. I'm trying to pick her up. And they still are telling me their problem.
Well, people are oblivious. It's like, hello.
I was like, one time, this is my good friend now, so we can laugh about it, but we were just getting to know each other. And my daughter was having this huge meltdown, and she was still trying to talk to me about life and all the things. And I finally just looked at her and I said, you need to leave. She's like, excuse me? I go, you need to leave my house right now. I was like, she's not going to calm down and I can't do anything about it until you leave my house. So sorry. And she was like, thank God she was not easily offended. But I had to have a few moments like that where I'm like, I'm sorry, you just need to go.
I've been insensitive at times, but I think I get prompted by the Holy Spirit or just conscience later to be like, that was really crappy. And I'll circle back and apologize. And I remember watching my mom just not even think the thing or say the thing. I'm like, why are you so nice? She's like, I've been walking with Jesus for 50, 60 years. Like, it's taken me time So I still have hope for myself that I won't even think it or say it. But right now I'm in that
process, right? It's all a process. Exactly.
Yeah.
He's patient with us, thankfully.
Thankfully.
I'm so excited to share about a new movie coming to theaters on February 21st called The Unbreakable Boy. And I got to see it ahead of time. It is fantastic. Grab your family, grab some tissue boxes, and make sure you check it out. This movie is from Kingdom Story Company. That's the team behind Jesus Revolution and the Best Christmas Pageant Ever. And also Lionsgate, the studio behind Wonder. When his parents, Scott, played by Zachary Levi, and Teresa, played by Megan Fahey, learn that their son Austin is both autistic and has brittle bone disease, they initially worry for their son's future. But Austin's incredible spirit transforms their family, teaching them all to embrace joy, gratitude, and hope, even in life's toughest moments. With Scott, the dad's growing faith, and Austin's unique outlook, they discover that together they are unbreakable. This extraordinary true story will inspire you and your family to see the beauty in every moment. Be sure to experience The Unbreakable Boy only in theaters starting February 21st. Child who struggles with a specific subject, or do you have a child who's ahead and not getting challenged enough in the classroom? For either of those kids and anyone in between, you should go check out IXL Learning. IXL Learning is an online learning program that enriches your homeschool curriculum and your child's classroom learning. It offers practice in math, English, language arts, science, and social studies while adapting to each child, meeting them exactly where they are. Plus, IXL encourages students to be curious and empowers them to choose how to learn. And the best part is, IXL is so easy for parents. One site gets you all you need, and IXL customizes learning for each child and their needs. Everything on IXL is organized by grade, subject, topic, and subtopic, making it simple to find activities for the exact skills you are covering. And IXL offers instant feedback and explanations of new topics as kids use the program. So you can feel confident that your kids will gain an understanding of the skills they are learning. Make an impact on your child's learning by getting IXL now. And Pardon the Mess listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/today. Visit IXL.com/today to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price.
All right, well, tell me about that time with Jesus. And I think the parents that are listening, no matter if they have a child with a learning disability or Down syndrome or anything, what did that journey look like of faith? Were you angry at God? Did you question him? I imagine all those things.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I definitely went through a season of being angry at him and kind of just asking all those whys, right? That we ask why, And I think one of the biggest things too was not only was I stuck on the why, but even when I couldn't get the answer to the why, like, why did this happen? Because I would beat myself up. I mean, terribly. Like, not just a spiritual why, like a literal, like, why? I'm like, I changed the cat litter when I was pregnant. Like, what? Like, what stupidest things? Like, I shoveled the driveway once. Like, what does that have to do? I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And when I couldn't figure it out, really got to this place also where, okay, maybe I'll never know why. Kind of made it through that season. But then I was like, I'm going to fix it.
Oh, yeah.
And this is huge. Now, and I know depending on the special needs, right? Like, and this is where autism gets really kind of tricky because it's like nobody's trying to fix their child with Down syndrome. I don't think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different. Nobody's trying to, if your child is like can't walk or something, like physically disabled, like you're accepting it. You're not fixing it. But in the world of autism, there is this whole subset that feeds you this thing that you can fix it. You can overcome it. And if you are a good enough parent and you invest enough money in our product, whatever it is, right? Like, I mean, and there's everything you can think of. There's natural food things, there's diet stuff, there's supplements, I met moms, and I literally was like, maybe I'm a bad mom, that were bringing their children to hyperbaric oxygen chambers to get more oxygen to their kids' brains. Like, there's crazy stuff that people do to try to fix autism. And so I went down this rabbit hole. I mean, that's what it was for years, thinking, okay, yeah, I don't know why. I can't change the past, but I can fix this.
Right.
And I think we can do this in our lives, even if you don't have an autism diagnosis, right? Like, it's where we feel completely out of control and we're trying to regain control. Like, I'm going to overcome this. And it's all through our own natural strength, right? Like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to, like, who am I? I'm going to solve, like, what causes autism? Like, what talking about? How insane is that? But for years, at one time, it was like maybe 2 years into this journey, I was going to play therapy. I was doing all these naturopathic doctor. Again, if you're listening to this and you have a child on the spectrum and you're doing these things, I'm not saying don't do them. Like, do whatever you think your child needs. It's the motivation behind, right? Especially as a Christian. And there was a point about 2 years into this journey, God just stopped me dead in my tracks one day. I was at the house and I just remember my daughter wasn't speaking barely at all. She was pretty much nonverbal. And I just remember being so frustrated because I was doing this special diet where she could barely eat anything. And she was miserable all the time. And I was miserable and spent all this money going to this play therapy thing in Massachusetts and just feeling like nothing was working. And God just stopped me dead in my tracks. And he said, Jess, I never called you to fix Mara. I called you to love her. And it was like a huge correction for me.
Wow. Gosh.
Like light bulb moment of what have I been doing?
Wow.
Like
but that has to come from a pure place. Well, I've not been in your shoes, but I have to think like anything with your kids. Like I love them so much. I want to give them anything to improve their life.
Absolutely. There's no ill intent. But I realized part of it was me just trying to control my life. I would say it was about my daughter, and we can do this with our kids, but it really was about me too.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I cared about her. I wanted what was best for her. Absolutely. But I also just wanted a normal life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there was a part of it that I just was not surrendering to the child God had given me, to the life that I had. I was going to fight it, come hell or high water. And when my son came into the picture and he also had severe autism, I just kind of literally put my hands up and said, okay, Jesus, like, this is my life. Like, and I'm just going to love them. I still, they're still going to ABA therapy. They still do speech. It's not like all of those things went away, but something changed in me. And the thing that it was no matter if I see zero results from this, it's okay. Yeah. It's that whole thing of they're a gift. They're a gift from God.
Such a gift.
And I don't have to dictate what the outcome looks like of all of these, therapies or things that it's okay. Like, I'm just going to love them because that's my job. And if they make great gains, amazing. And if they don't, oh, well, I get to love them their whole life anyway. And it's a very hard lesson to learn. And depending on where the journey you're at, with a child with special needs, you can't make yourself get there. You can't hear this and think, oh, I have to think that way, or I'm wrong because I'm going down this, trail to fix my child. Don't hear this with condemnation, because that is not my intent. My intent is just to say, hey, I might be a little further down the road, and this is what God has taught me through this journey.
It makes me think you probably have more freedom in your days than pressure, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like if the goal is different, fix versus love, it's like that I can do. That I can get behind.
There's no pressure on me. And a lot of that too, and I would say that's the other big lesson I've walked away with is constantly being humbled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, I can't even tell you, I can't even begin to count the humiliating situations that we have found ourselves in. Our kids are not aware socially, so they're never embarrassed, which in a lot of ways I'm thankful, because some kids on the more mild end of the spectrum are aware, they want friends, they want people to like them, and it's way harder, where our kids are oblivious. But the embarrassment is on me or us, right? Yeah. Like, you look like the bad parent, or it's, oh my gosh, the stories. But one time I was complaining to my mom about it when my daughter Mara was little, and she said something that has I just keep it in the back of my mind anytime I feel embarrassed. And she said this, she goes, Jess, it's a good thing, when Mara has a meltdown in public and you're embarrassed. I'm like, there's nothing good about it, Mom, nothing. Your mom's always trying to be nice. But she goes, no, just think about it. Every time that happens and you feel that sting of like, gosh, and your face gets red, she said, pride's leaving.
Wow.
And the more pride that leaves, the more room there is for Jesus. And I was like, okay.
Oh,
okay.
That takes my breath away a little bit.
As much as I hate that, I'm going to accept that, because I want more of Jesus in my life. And there is a lot of pride in me that he's got to kill. So if this is by the means you use, Jesus, then let it be.
I can't even imagine the number of Karens that you have been encircled with that are like staring at you at the grocery store or
the comments people have said. I've had old ladies say the most horrible things to me. Sometimes it's always the old ladies. I was like, I don't know if because autism wasn't as prevalent or people were in like institutions, but man, those old ladies got opinions. That's all I got to say.
And you just want to hand them a card and be like, I want you to sit with this when you get in your car and realize what you've just done to that mom.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, and then you say, well, she has autism or she has severe autism, and they'll be like, that's not even a real thing. I'm like, oh.
Okay, really? Really? Lord help us. All right, both of you and I both got to watch Unbreakable Boy. I imagine I saw that the true story of this family, he was on your podcast recently, and I watched it and just boohooed because I have a nephew on the spectrum who is the biggest gift to our family, and he's the favorite of everybody. And just watching what he's done for us and just taught us, like that gift is like, I wouldn't change him for the world. But the other part of it that made me cry is not realizing what my sister had been through and her husband and the stuff that they don't talk about or that happened behind closed doors. So was it difficult to watch or was it healing in some way?
No, it was actually difficult. It's funny because my daughter now with autism is going to be 16. So it's been a while. And my son is, like I said, my son Jacob is 11. But I told my husband watching that movie, we were both crying, right? It felt like, I mean, it was so validating in a lot of ways, but yeah, I was crying like profusely. And it made me even realize like, oh no, like I'm not sure I'm fully healed yet.
Yeah, it's just a grief.
Not in a bad way, but like in a, I think sometimes, especially, and you know this as a mom, we're just go, right?
Yeah.
We got to keep going. I got to care for all these people around me. Like I don't always have the time that I need to grieve and I think in my mind, when I watched that movie, I thought and I do, for the most part, I feel good. Like I feel almost like the wound that was in my heart is now a scar. Doesn't mean it's still there, right?
Yeah.
Like, but when I touch it, it doesn't hurt anymore.
Wow.
Which is huge. It's huge. And if you're listening to this now and you're like, that is not me, I'm telling you, with Jesus and time, that will be you. You have to believe that. But watching that movie, I kind of started to be like, oh, gosh, maybe I'm not fully. I almost felt like I said to my husband, I think I'm still a little traumatized by what we've gone through.
Right.
But it was a good thing. It was almost like, I felt like God used it almost to kind of open up maybe a part of me. Like you said, the things happen behind closed doors, right? It's the things you don't always talk about because unless they're another family on the spectrum, like you can't relate to it. Like you're not going to be like, yeah, so my daughter was throwing herself down the stairs again and hitting herself in the face. And then she had black and blue and people will be like, what? Like, but it's this painful place, right? That if you're not talking about it, it's almost like you're not processing or dealing with that grief. So I just think it's going to be eye-opening to people that aren't in the community, but also healing, validating, and just kind of allows you to continue to walk through that process of grieving, I think, for those families that have a child on the spectrum. So I'm really excited for it to come out into the world.
Me too. One of the things that I want my children to watch it because I'm like, they have grown up with their cousin and they've done a great job, but he isn't super high on the spectrum. And so I think it'll just be eye-opening to them. But what would you say to parents that do not have a child with special needs? How can we be good parents and support to you? And then in same lane, what can we do to help our kids have more empathy and be great friends to kids that feel like they're, how do you even say it? I want to be politically correct. So every kid's got something, but how would you, I don't want to call my kids normal. How would you differentiate it?
When we were at a playground like a couple years ago and this one little girl was trying to play with my daughter, but she realized like, oh, she's kind of jibber jabbering to herself and she's not answering my questions and all these things. And so she came up to me and she goes, what is wrong with her? You gotta love it because kids just say it like it is, right?
That's right.
And I just said, her brain doesn't work the same as ours, but she still wants to have friends.
That's
I don't know. That's the most basic way for me to describe it to a kid.
That's great.
But I mean, I think the biggest thing to a parent, maybe if you're like, how do I be supportive? I don't have any children myself, that are special needs, is just let all your judgments go to the wayside. Really, because like I said, when I had my son, my oldest, he's just so good, so well behaved, so smart, like just like perfect baby, never cried. And I thought it was because I was a good parent.
Mm.
But the realization is I was just a lucky parent.
Wow.
And you have to realize that, because otherwise you will look at other families or other situations through a filter, and you will, even if you don't mean to, as a Christian, you will judge. You will say, well, they should discipline, or, well, they should not let them do that in public, or they need to learn how to control their child. Or I still hear this. I would never let my child do blah, 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 blah. And it's usually something my child's doing. I'm like, hello, do you know who you're talking to?
That's like, really?
I would never let my child watch TV all day. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I would never let my child
for a
eat
day.
sweets,
Yeah.
before dinner. Everything they say, I'd be like, my child does all of those things. So you just got to realize, if you have typical kids and they're pretty well behaved, it's not because you're a super parent. I'm not saying everything we do doesn't affect our kids, but at the end of the day, you're a lucky parent. Wow. And have grace and empathy towards the families that didn't get that luck. Because I have 5 kids and they're all extremely different, even though we're parenting them all the same, right? And then as far as kids to kids, I think kids, I almost feel like they don't need advice. They
so true.
Like the girl on the playground. Now, maybe when they get teenagers, that's different. But when they're younger, they just want to play. They don't.
Yeah.
They'll say, hey, what's wrong with her? But it's funny because this girl, when my daughter was playing with her, was probably half my daughter's age. But my daughter is 15, but she has the mentality probably of like a 6-year-old, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's almost like kids can pick up on that and they want to play. And she ended up chasing her all around the playground and running after her. And they're just giggling and laughing. And
sweet.
And I don't know. Sometimes I just think there's an innocence and a purity that kids have that we as adults don't.
Yeah, you're right.
Prejudice, this jadedness, this judgment. Sometimes you see it in teens. But the other thing that I've noticed in our situation is having my oldest son, who is typical, grow up in this environment. He has such compassion for kids in his own school.
Yes.
That it's like amazing. Like he would never say this out loud, but I know he does it. He purposely befriends people in his life that are on the spectrum. Now they're on the mild end of the spectrum. They'd be the person that talks all day about cars or whatever. And he just patiently joins in, watches a NASCAR documentary, not because he wants to, but because he gets it, because he's lived it. And so I just say, to those older, like the teens or whatever, just try to find a common ground.
That's great.
Try to find something, because it typically on the spectrum, they tend to really fixate on certain topics, or they just want to talk all about one thing, and just allow them to feel that connection, even if it's small and vague and you're kind of pretending. Good. But it is. They want friends too, right? They want, even my daughter, who isn't as social, she wants to run around the playground and be chased by somebody.
That's so
great. Just try to find those common threads and just be that kind of friend.
I think one of my fears in life is and you already heard me asking for the right words, I'm going to do it wrong or I'm going to offend. And I watch, like you said, kids just dive in. And my oldest daughter, who's a senior, does the buddy ministry with a boy named Truett that has Down syndrome. And she loves him. And she said, as she's going to college, she's like, I'm going to find a group at college to hang out with like that. And it just has opened her eyes. And just an hour here, he's a grandchild of someone at our church. So they call her when he's coming to church, and she sews up. And so I think she was scared at first. And now that she just sits with him and knows him, that she's like, he likes music. So we play music. And I'm really proud of her, because I thought it kind of ripped a Band-Aid off of being taken awesome fear. So I think
that's a really good point you brought up. Is I think I even remember myself being afraid of people that were disabled as like a teen and a young adult. Like I love Jesus. But I kind of like, oh no, there's that guy in the wheelchair. Or like, I kind of like always like, and that's what you notice when you are a special needs family, is everybody kind of like, right? And it's a horrible feeling, because sometimes you need help, or you just want to feel normal and not everybody looking at you and like giving you the sympathy eye. Like it's terrible. But like what you said, I think breaking through the ice and just spending even a little bit of time, you start to realize, oh my gosh, they're people too.
That's right.
Likes and dislikes. And it stops being scary and it actually starts being fulfilling, because you realize every person is created in the image of God. So they actually have something to give us that we don't have. And if we really believed that, we would treat people different, right? We wouldn't be avoiding. We'd want to connect because there's something they are going to give us that I don't even have yet.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm so excited. Jill Jefferson, who is over our podcast network, is like, I'm telling you, you have to have her on. So
I love Jill.
I'm so glad we finally connected, and she isn't wrong. You are amazing. So I want to give you the last couple of minutes wherever, and I had tons of questions we didn't get to, but think about the mom that is engaging this morning that is maybe in a new diagnosis or early in there, and you just want to give her a big hug. What would you say to those moms or dads that are just early in their journey?
Yeah, a couple things. First things I would say is that this is a season.
Yeah.
All seasons have one thing in common. They end. Okay? And so it feels heartbreaking, devastating, confusing, scary. All of these emotions, feel them. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't. They're valid. This is just a season, though. You're going to walk through this season. Years are going to go by. And again, not saying autism or whatever diagnosis it is going to disappear, but you're going to get a better handle on things. Like I was kind of talking before about, the wound is going to become a scar. It won't hurt. I mean, every time I used to talk about my daughter, and I tried not to talk about her because I'd just start crying. I couldn't keep the tears in because it was so painful what we were going through. And when I looked towards the future and I thought, oh my gosh, like, is she going to live with us forever? I'm going to feel this way forever. That part's not true. No matter what the future looks like, you're not going to feel the way you feel right now forever.
Wow.
That God, time, and the power of the Holy Spirit, like that wound can and will heal.
Wow.
So that's the first thing I want to tell parents that are kind of in the middle of that diagnosis area. But the second is this, and this is important. God will give you more than you can handle. Because that was the biggest thing. I kept being like, this is insane. And then something crazier would happen. And I'd be like, really, God? I don't understand, And then people would be like, well, God must trust you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. Stop trusting me, God. Like stupid things people would say, like, God will never give you more than you can handle. He will. He does it on purpose. He allows it on purpose to move us from a place of self-sufficiency to God reliance. To this place where I actually need you every day, Jesus, because we're pretty capable people. We live in the U.S. We've got a good head on our shoulders. He purposely will put us in situations we're completely overwhelmed by. And it's okay because it actually is a good thing because it's going to teach you how to stop relying on yourself and start truly, not just saying it in your mind, but truly relying on Jesus every day. And I am so thankful. As crazy as a parenting journey we've had, I feel like I'm dramatically different in a good way, not in a bitter, jaded way, but in a beautiful way. Like I really do trust God, like not just with my kids, but with my future, with a decision I make. Like I can make it and I take the responsibility I need to take, but then it's like hands off, whatever you want, Jesus. And that's a beautiful place to be in. So believe that God's doing that in you, even in the midst of this uncertain time, because He's going to bring you to that place of God reliance.
Wow. So good. Guys, don't you love her? Head on over to Full Spectrum Parent to get more from Jessica and her husband. And then make sure you check out Unlimited Motherhood that she wrote that came out last year. And then Unbreakable Boy, we both love. Yes. And I think it's like I said, I think it's a great movie for our kids to kind of step in the lives of somebody else and see what's going on with our neighbors and people that we love. So thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pardon the Mess. As always, we've got more encouragement and resources over at christianparenting.org. And you can also stay connected with us on social media at Pardon the Mess. And if you like this episode, I'd love for you to do two things. Press follow on whatever podcast platform you love, and also be sure to leave a rating so other parents can find us. Remember, you're never alone in this beautiful mess of parenting.
All you homeowners have unique needs. Some feel the need to paint their door a vibrant shade of blue. Others have the need to decorate their bathroom with fish, anchors, and other nautical items. And because each homeowner has unique needs, Geico helps you get the right coverage for your home and what's in it. That way, you get exactly what's right for you, even if your needs are unique. Get more with Geico.